Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the International Webinar Series on Holistic Health, Well-being and Sustainable Development 2022-2023, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 76 years of independence, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030, India's G20 presidency, in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Art, Sciences and Wellbeing. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's commemorations. Today, September 15th, is commemorated as International Day of Democracy with the theme for 2023, Empowering the Next Generation. This year's theme for the International Day of Democracy, Empowering the Next Generation, focuses on young people's essential role in advancing democracy and ensuring that their voices are included in the decisions that have a profound impact on their world. So young people are the current and future custodians of democracy. As engaged, well-educated electorate is at the heart of strong democratic societies, creating an environment in which young people feel their voice counts is crucial. Young people must navigate a world in which democracies are under threat from factors ranging from the proliferation of online misinformation and disinformation to rising populism and the destabilizing effects of the climate crisis. It is important everyone is able to meaningfully participate in the decisions that affect their lives now in the years to come. Unresolved conflict, the rising threat of climate change and financial turmoil pose a constant threat to democracies around the world. The walls are closing in on civic spaces, warns United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the International Day of Democracy. In his message marking the days, in the UN chief blames the current spread of misinformation and disinformation. That is poisoning public discourse, polarizing communities, and eroding trust in institutions. Given the damaging effect that this flood of false information can have on young people, this year's International Day of Democracy is dedicated to empowering the next generation by focusing on the critical role of children and youngsters in ensuring democracy today and in the future. The effects of climate crisis on the physical environment are today impossible to ignore, and it is becoming increasingly apparent that it is a challenge to democracy. Growing food insecurity, migration, water scarcity, and the extreme weather events are driving conflict and weighing on the minds of voters. Young people around the world have shown that they are extremely concerned about the climate crisis In recent years, hundreds of thousands of school-age children, frustrated by the pace of negotiations to cut fossil fuel emissions, have taken part in large-scale marches, strikes, and protests. Calls for climate justice have also been a feature of these demonstrations. Young people realize that they are likely to suffer the consequences of an increasingly unstable climate caused by the activities of earlier generations. The United Nations recognized the importance of empowering young people to take leadership roles on issues of international importance. The Office of the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth convenes the Young Leaders for the Sustainable Development Goals, a group of 17 changemakers whose leadership is catalyzing the achievement of the SDGs, and the Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change ensures that the Secretary General hears directly from the young climate activists who can share strategies for advancing climate action. The UN Democracy Fund, in short known as UNDEF, finances projects that empower civil society, promote human rights, and encourage the participation of all age groups and groups in democratic process, including youth. The International Day of Democracy provides an opportunity to review the state of democracy in the world. Democracy is much a process as a goal, and only with the full participation of the support by the international community, national governing bodies, civil society, and individuals can the ideal of democracy be made into a reality to be enjoyed by everyone, everywhere. Freedom of expression is a fundamental human right, enshrined in Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But around the world, there are governments and those wielding power who find many ways to obstruct it. Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, everyone has a right of freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. The link between democracy and the press freedom is enshrined in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. Democracy is a universally recognized ideal and is one of the core values and principles of the United Nations. Democracy provides an environment for the protection and effects, realization of human rights. The UN promotes good governance, monitors elections, supports civil society to strengthen democratic institutions and accountability, and ensure self-determination in decolonized countries, and assist in drafting of new consultations in post-conflict nations. UNDEF stands for UN Democratic Fund, funds projects that empower civil society, protect and promote human rights, and encourage the participation of all groups in democratic process. The large majority of the UNDEF funds go to local civil society organizations, both in the transition and consolidation phases of democratization. In this way, UNDEF plays a novel and unique role in complementing the UN's other more traditional work with the governments to strengthen democratic governance around the world.
Imagine one day we wake up without the information to answer critical questions. How do we know what to do in case of a natural disaster, or how to assess which leaders can ensure a better future for our family? We need access to information. Without information, we can't make informed decisions. Aware of this fact, Sweden and Finland introduced access to information into their constitution in 1766. This was a historical breakthrough. It abolished political censorship and gave citizens the legal right to scrutinize and share public documents. Similar ideas inspired thinkers and freedom advocates across the ages, because through access to information, press freedom and freedom of expression can grow. Governments can be held accountable and corruption can be exposed. When the UN was founded, the universal value of free information was recognized by all countries. In 1948, it was inscribed at the core of Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Gradually, more countries started protecting freedom of information in laws and constitutions. But much work needs to be done to make true access to information a reality for everyone everywhere. This means real access for both men and women, regardless of condition, origin, and affiliation. If you request information, you should be able to get it timely and effectively. And know this is your right. World leaders have agreed to make access to information universal by 2030. With open and free information, people can live in a world that is more fair, equal, and transparent. Together, we can make this possible. A world where we can all make informed decisions.
So International Day of Democracy allows us the opportunity to celebrate and appreciate our democratic society. It is very easy for people who live in a free society to take their freedoms for granted. Yet, when freedom is absent, life includes unimaginable challenges that are often incomprehensible. Today, let's reflect on the history of democracy around the world and thank those influenced the development of our government and look for the opportunities to promote and protect our own nation's democracy. The United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution in 2007 that September 15th would be observed as International Day of Democracy each year. Their goal for the day is to promote government's role in maintaining open democracy among all member nations of the UN Charter and to celebrate the system of values democracy promotes, giving citizens the power to make decisions all aspects of their lives. In their efforts to advocate for democratic societies around the world, the UN serves a variety of purposes, including monitoring elections, working to strengthen democratic institutions and accountability, and assisting nations recovering from conflict to create their own constitutions. For democracy's birth in ancient Greece thousands of years ago today, the foundation of a democratic society is the ability of its people to participate in the decision-making process of the nation. This can happen only when everyone is allowed to vote, regardless of race, gender, and other factors remaining in inclusion. And equality are also important to the success of a democratic society. In America, we have representative democracy, meaning we elect officials to represent our collective voice. to vote on decisions. In a similar way, in India and other various countries, is the largest democratic country in the world. As you reflect on your freedoms and consider the country's current state of democracy, taking inventory of how many ways you participate in a collective decision making of our country and support the ideals of democracy. Around 350 BC, in the earliest comparisons, Aristotle wrote about the various types of governments, including democracy, in order to compare the different systems and contemplate which was the most successful. These writings were influential to the development of modern-day democracy. King John of England cedes absolute power by signing the Magna Carta. Although it doesn't create a democracy, it forms basis for a parliamentary form of government in 1250. The US Constitution sets forth the powers of United States government and spells out important limitations of the government designed to protect the basic rights of American citizens. In 1789, with the US Constitution, New Zealand was the first country to grant women the right to vote. They allowed women to participate in the election process before many other countries, including the US and UK, in 1893. Around the world, 4 countries claim not to be run under a democratic government: Saudi Arabia, Burma, Brunei, and Vatican City. The first government was formed in Athens in 508 BC, and the International Day of Democracy is commemorated on September 15th every year. Every year, the UN holds official global events that spread awareness about democracy in action. Past themes have included encouraging young people to take part in democratic movements, addressing sustainable development, and promoting civility within societies. Our responsibility as citizens to vote is important, but we shouldn't go in the voting polls uninformed. Today, take some time to learn about the candidates in upcoming local, state, and federal elections. Make sure the candidates for whom you cast your ballot are actually aligned to your ideals, will serve their constituents, and make decisions for the betterment of the community. A great source to help you become a well-informed citizen is such sites like Wise Voter and many other available online. As a member of democratic government, you wield great power. Democracy is both a goal and a process that hinges upon the involvement. Thanks to the digital advancements, it's now easier than ever to contact representatives, advocate for causes, vote, and make a difference in our unique form of government. Thomas Paine was an influential writer who inspired the American Revolution. He wanted to see an end to executive tyranny and felt the extension of political power to all was the best way to achieve this. One of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, was considered one of the biggest proponents of the democracy. He drafted the US Declaration of Independence, famously stating, "All men are created equal." Susan B. Anthony campaigned for the democratic ideal that all people should be allowed to participate. She fought against slavery and for women's equality and the right to vote. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the most prominent figures in the US civil rights movement. He fought for the ideals of true democracy and extending the right to vote for American African community. William Penn, an English Quaker who believed in religious and political freedom, was an early advocate for uniting the original colonies of America. Democracy is powerful because it gives a voice to its nation's citizens, enabling them to make changes as they see fit. One of the results of this form of government is democratic changes create space for new economic theories to emerge, ultimately leading to the world of innovation and improvement. A cornerstone of democratic societies is that they have power to make change. necessary. In principle, if things are going well, citizens have the power to maintain the status. But if things don't work out, it's up to the people to throw out the old and bring in the new. The founding documents of democratic governments put great emphasis on the equality, one person, one vote, no matter who you are or your station in life. While this idea has not always been consistent or constant or popular over the centuries, equal rights under the law are central to democratic governments. Today is also commemorated as International Dot Day. Today we start with a story about a little girl named Vashti, the protagonist of Peter H. Reynolds' tale, The Dot. On September 15, 2003, author and illustrator of children's book, Peter H. Reynolds, released his book, The Dot. In the story, Vashti felt that she couldn't draw, but her art teacher wouldn't accept that. Just make a mark and see where it takes, the teacher said to Vashti. So she has marked her parchment paper with a small dot. The next day, Vashti was surprised to find paper with dot on the classroom wall. Vashti was so proud of her work, and then she started creating drawings with different kinds of dots. Eventually, Vashti was able to pass the lesson about the confidence that she had learned from her teacher on to someone else. A dot might be small, but it's a powerful way to show your unique individuality and creativity. And that's the story that inspired International Dot Day. The dot has inspired millions of children and adults. It is used by teachers as a method to encourage creativity and instill confidence in students. One teacher in Iowa, Terry Shea, introduced the book to entire classroom on September 15, 2009. This led to the observance of the International Dot Day every year on September 15. The flow of creativity and courage is celebrated by millions of teachers and students around the world. Such is the widespread influence of the dot that is currently celebrated in 192 countries by more than 19 million people. There is also a website by the name The Dot Club, which serves as a free resource for downloadable material. The printouts like an official certificate of participation. Conformity kills creativity. Conformity stifles creativity as it creates pressure to maintain a certain way of doing things. In a study linking creative expression with openness, individuals possessing a free flow of mind reported the highest rates of creativity. Creative minds have better ways to overcome hurdles in life and more than likely to get more creative with age. An upset and unclear mind will weigh you down and the creative process and create less motivation. So positivity boosts creativity. This is most subjective, but traits commonly linked to the creative people include independence, a sense of self-orientation, and dedication towards work. Depending on how philosophical you would like to get, a dot can represent nearly anything. We can use them for punctuation to convey when one thought ends and other begins. When you go down deep enough, every piece of art is just a different arrangement of dots, as in the artistic technique, pointillism. But in our digital world, it's easy to see that every image is a collection of pixels, which when isolated are merely a collection of individual digital dots. Let's think of them as atoms of the art world. Anybody on the planet can celebrate International Dot Day. This is because everybody can draw a dot and make their mark. Period. Today is also commemorated as Make a Hat Day. In US, This day is about bringing out the creativity within us to make our hats. Colors, fabrics, and sizes are no bar. Just make a hat that suits your personality and your clothes. Throughout history, human beings and hats have shared a special bond. Style switch, but never the essence. If you love hats and do it yourself, then September 15th is a perfect day for you. Hats have been there since history. Humans have had a long history with hats. What first evolved as a necessity soon became a class symbol. Now hats contribute more towards making a fashion statement. The need to cover our heads isn't unique to one continent either. Hats have found a place in every culture's history. Hats trace back to their origins, to the Bronze Age. A man's body adorning a hat dating back to 3300 BC was found in the mountains connecting Italy and Austria. Over the centuries, hats have been used as a way of expressing one's religious identity, status, political affiliation, and style preferences. It's wonderful how a single accessory can redefine your entire look. Although the origins of this holiday are unknown, the intent behind is clear. Make your hat and rock throughout the day, and it's not fabric or style that matters, but your desire to be as creative as you can be. Today is also commemorated as National Africa Civility Day in US, which is a humanitarian holiday celebrated every year on September 15, typically marked by award ceremonies that are organized to celebrate work of humanitarians from all over the world. Since its inception, National Africa Civility Day was established by Ideal Environment for humanitarian organizations under the global authorities to convene and discuss strategies for intervening in mitigating the worsening crisis in various societies across the globe. On the first African continent, talks surrounding civility have become increasingly significant as a result of the thin line that exists between efforts to promote peace and efforts to improve humanitarian conditions. It is great that we have a day to honor all those involved in humanitarian efforts for their role in bringing peace and reconciliation among warring factions. Even in the heart of war, humanitarian organizations have been known to have access to places where others cannot reach as they bring aid to those in need. We therefore cannot truly commemorate this day without making mention of Henry Duan, a Swiss businessman and social activist best known as a person who started formalized humanitarian aid. In June 1859, after seeing how wounded soldiers were left to die after the Battle of Solferino, Junen changed his plans and started a relief response. Junen provided food, drink, and medical supplies to injured men from all sides, including the Austrian, Italian, and French armies. Solemnly recounting his experiences at Battle of Solferino, Junen's memoir is an important foundational work for modern humanitarians. His efforts to establish an everlasting rescue organization and international humanitarian law took off shortly after the publication of Junen's foundational book, which was in 1862. To help the wounded soldiers in war, the Geneva Society of Public Welfare established International Committee for Aid to Wounded in Situations of War in 1863. In 1864, the Geneva Convention signed an agreement to set rules for the future wars. The goal was to take care of and to protect the sick and injured during any battle. With increased media attention and celebrity sponsorship in the following decades, the treaty's growing significance inspired large-scale government-led relief efforts in the wake of disasters all around the globe. To date, the International Committee of the Red Cross has been a protector of humanitarian law and one of the world's biggest donors for almost a century. Today is also commemorated as National Cheese Toast Day in US. This flavorful combination born in California is a favorite food around the world, and it is also simple and very filling. You can even add some toppings to it if you want, but even simple, good old piece of cheese toast works the trick and is a key to many people's heart. When we think of cheese toast, our mouths instantly start salivating and the hunger pangs come out in full force. Cheese toast is a tasty treat that is prepared using a single slice of bread that is toasted with melted cheese on top. But make sure don't consume much cheese as it can lead to obesity. Today is also commemorated as National Concussion Awareness Day. In US, is recognized on the third Friday of each September yearly and will be recognized on September 15th this year. Concussions are commonly associated with sports accidents, but they are also brought on by other non-sporting activities like motor vehicle collisions, falls, sports injuries, and bicycle accidents. National Concussion Awareness Day is acknowledged by the Brain Injury Association of America. The day is registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Concussions have rapidly become a plague in the United States with increased cases of mild traumatic brain injuries happening each year. Traumatic brain injuries are classified as head injuries or injury to part of the head resulting from damage to the brain by an external mechanical force or stroke or infection. Concussion, as a mild form of traumatic brain injury, is a head injury that temporarily affects the functioning of the brain. Regardless of its severity, if left undiagnosed and untreated, concussions are easily overlooked, thus require an immediate and thorough evaluation by a qualified medical provider to rule out life-threatening head injuries or injuries to other parts of the system. Symptoms of a concussion last up to 2 weeks, can result in changes in mood and displays of unusual emotions. The objective of National Concussion Awareness Day is to create an opportunity for healthcare practitioners, caretakers, and sufferers alike to have an open discussion of this issue. The goal is to generate an increased circulation of information on the case to further educate the general public. Chess has been stereotyped as a game for geniuses due to mental resolve needed to partake in it. But like every other sport in the world, if it piques your interest, learn it. And thus, concussion is not a lifelong impairment. Symptoms may form individual, but concussion should be suspected. If a person hits their head and shows signs of confusion, slurred speech, and difficulty recognizing people or places. Concussions usually go undiagnosed and untreated due to varying symptoms. If you suspect you or anyone you know is having a concussion, kindly reach out to appropriate medical practitioner. Learn and understand the basic skills necessary for recognizing a concussion, treating it appropriately, and supporting the injured. You can use online and offline social media platforms to share your story or anyone's story to raise awareness, such as and educate general public. The Brain Injury Association of America leads the nation in observing brain injury awareness each year. The theme for the 2023 to 2021 to 23 campaign is More Than My Brain Injury. Young children have the highest concussion rate among all age groups. It affects more young children. Males suffer at about twice the rate of female counterparts. It is severe in adult males. It is a daily injury in American football, rugby, MMA, and boxing. It's a common sport injury. To target athletes, female athletes have a higher risk of suffering a concussion than male athletes. Several medical groups have called for a ban on the sport due to persistent concussion cases. It almost caused a boxing ban. Many people still think someone can only be concussed if they are knocked out. National Concussion Awareness Day gives the opportunity and platform to start a conversation and increase concussion awareness. Athletes with concussions return to play before they should, and some are skeptical about disclosing their health issues due to fear of being benched or sidelined. On this day, we support athletes going to thorough breaks in their careers for health-related issues. The cost of recovery for brain injuries is high. On this day, we are excited about raising funds for charitable organizations dedicated to brain injury and show support for those affected through community events and other fun engagements. Today is also commemorated as National Custom Framing Day in US. This is a day dedicated to commemorating beautiful custom frames. They are all around us with so many shapes, colors, sizes today. When we look back in history through frames though frames were not always a modern looking, but certainly had some precious purpose. This is why today we celebrate the art of creating custom frames. So have a nice picture you want to get framed, well, grab your wallet and start shopping. The idea is to cherish the frames that protect our photos throughout the years. While the frames we can see are modern and cutting edge, there was a time when they were simply due to lack of technology. For instance, in the 2nd century BC, frames existed in the form of borders created around Etruscan cave paintings. In the Middle Ages, the trend shifted and the wood used to frame aquatic artworks that needed to be displayed. Those artists paid extra attention to beautifying them by adding carvings and gold leaves to the wood. The trend of frames as an art piece further boomed in 14th and 15th centuries when wealthy nobles started using them to accentuate the beauty of the paintings within them. By 1515, magnificent frames started being designed by furniture builders, while these handcrafted ones were unique and valuable. The trend slowly diminished in the 19th century when companies started producing them on a large scale. Today is also commemorated as DARE Day in United States. DARE is abbreviation for Drug Abuse Resistance Education. People celebrate this Drug Abuse Resistance Education Day, in short known as DARE Day, on September 15th every year. This holiday was a collective effort to bring attention to a social cause. Drug abuse is a recruitment issue in many and recurrent issue in many countries and one of the leading causes of death. Several initiatives and educational programs have been organized during the last few decades to prevent drug abuse, and this special observance is one of such efforts. In early 1980s, drugs became a noticeable issue in many inner cities. During that period, several government programs were organized in response, but as policies changed, drug abuse remained a constant issue, requiring a different approach. Prevention is one of the most commonly used methods in response to drug abuse, and this is the basis for drug abuse resistance education programs. The DARE programs was developed by Los Angeles Police Department to educate people. As it proved successful, other cities adopted similar approaches, and soon enough, DARE programs became a national standard applied in schools across the US. The program caught the attention of then President Ronald Reagan, who announced the first national celebration of DARE Day. At the height of their existence, DARE programs were funded by the federal government and commissioned by the Drug-Free Schools and Communities Act. Many schools still organize DARE programs, but as of today, several studies on the effectiveness of some methods used in the program have led to alterations. Despite numerous changes to the programs, DARE Day is still nationwide celebration with educational activities organized to commemorate it each year. And the main message of prevention of drug addiction and abuse still resonates. In many countries, drug abuse and overdose are one of the leading causes of death. Prevention is the best way to counter drug abuse, especially when introduced at an young age. There are many addictive substances and different ways to indulge in them, which often makes addiction difficult to spot. Studies show that the people who suffer from depression and trauma are more likely to develop a habit if exposed to drugs. Most people would develop a drug habit to do so around the age of adolescence and early adulthood. Their programs are educational, they require broad study and adaptation. This day reminds the public of the need to incorporate these programs into educational system to raise amongst the school children at the formative stage. Today is also commemorated as National Butterscotch Cinnamon Pie Day in US. Butterscotch Cinnamon Pie Day is a celebration of newly relative pie creation, and its origins are little geeky, but a lot inventive. If you have ever wondered if the pairing of butterscotch and cinnamon might be delicious, you will be delighted to know that it is match made in heaven. In contrast to other pies, whose origins have historical elements, such as those made their way in the medieval Europe in local bake shops, butterscotch cinnamon pie has a contemporary background. It came from a video game called Undertale, where the pie appeared in it. Undertale is a pixel-style role-playing game produced by American video game developer Toby Fox. Its first launch was 2015, with the game setting being a human infant who was being transported into monster-infested underground world divided by a magical barrier. It is a unique experience. You will be presented with a series of choice-driven scenarios of the game progress, which will aid in determining the type of conclusion you will receive. During the scene where your character encounters Toriel, a monster of motherly nature, the celebrated butterscotch cinnamon pie first appears. If you accept Toriel's invitation into their home, she will serve you the delicious pie to make you feel welcome and instill confidence in your heart. Back in 2016, as the game achieved a worldwide sensation, fans who adored it attempted to reproduce the pie, and turned out that it was every bit as good as it appeared. Butterscotch Cinnamon Pie Day was then created as a celebration of this pie, as well as the birth of Undertale fandom. Today is also commemorated as Costa Rica Independence Day. In Costa Rica, marks the day Central America declared independence from Spain in 1821. Following the announcement, the country's first constitution was readily accepted, and Costa Rica held its first elections. Juan Mora Fernandez was the first elected chief of the state, and he worked hard to improve his country and promote industrial and commercial development. Every year, a symbolic independence torch is transported by runners from Guatemala to Costa Rica's colonial capital of Cortago, east of San Jose, to reenact how News of independent nation. Independence declaration spread throughout the country. Today is also commemorated as El Salvador Independence Day. The others in Salvador, the other American countries at Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica join in because the Act of Independence of Central America signed Guatemala City in 1821. El Salvador is a country in Central America with mountains and flat plains and receives lots of rain. The country's natural flower is Flor de Isota or Yucca flower blossom. El Salvador is also known for its beautiful beaches, including Playa Popio, Playa El Sunzal, Playa El Chun. Today is also commemorated as Felt Hat Day to honor the rich history of hats that also marks a shift in the weather, including today's cooler weather signals a shift in wardrobe, while we can replace summer jackets with coats and sandals with boots. It is also a great day to connect with the history of hats and a bond that goes all the way to Bronze Age. In the present times, hats are driven by fashion, but earlier they were driven by necessity. Traditional men were expected to retire their summer straw hats and resume wearing felt or wool hats in the colder winter months. In 1922, there was a series of riots around September 15th in New York City, with actual fatalities over people wearing straw hats out of season. Felt, a man-made fabric, is the center of this celebration for a reason. September 15th is the perfect way to wear a vintage ensemble. And do not forget to top it off with a felt hat. Today is also commemorated as Greenpeace Day in US. It is a day dedicated to bringing about change in the way we treat our environment. It calls for peaceful protests to improve the air that we breathe, reduce the dependency on fossil fuels, avoiding the usage of plastic, and improving the water quality. Greenpeace undertakes various campaigns to this effect to spread awareness of these concerns. Greenpeace Day marks the day of the organization was founded on September 15th in the year 1971. This happened when 17 activists were sailing on the Phyllis Cormac to try and stop the nuclear testing, which was set to take place off the shores of Alaska. The testing proceeded, however, the protests that took place set in motion a movement that is still relevant and growing in today's time. Thus, in honor of Greenpeace, the mayor of Vancouver, Gregor Robertson, proclaimed September 15th as Greenpeace Day in 2011. Greenpeace undertakes several campaigns regularly to throw light on the ecological concerns that need urgent attention. A non-governmental organization, it operates in a minimum of 55 countries and has an international coordinating group functioning out of Amsterdam, Netherlands. They also gave over 3 million members, which will actively work towards achieving the mission of organization. Greenpeace has also been involved in an initiative for almost 50 years known as the Greenpeace Fleet. This consists of 3 ships that sail around the oceans of the world and raise awareness for environmental justice. Greenpeace Day is celebrated across the globe in various ways. This is a perfect opportunity to start campaigning for your planet and make it a better place. In Vancouver, the home of Greenpeace, the celebrations include free family-friendly outdoor festivals, tree planting workshops focused on activism, and environmental-centric activities. It's not too late for anyone to jump on the wagon to do your bit for the environment. Today is also commemorated as Guatemala Independence Day, also known as Guatemala's National Day, commemorates the independence of the region from Spanish rule. The independence celebrations on this day are usually filled with colorful parades, concerts, and numeric civil campaigns. The local cuisines and beautiful Mayan designs on display during Guatemala Independence Day have become a major tourist attraction. This day presents a perfect opportunity to experience the full splendor of Guatemalan culture. Today is also commemorated as Honduras Independence Day. Honduras Independence Day is a day of great fun and celebration for the people living in Honduras. The Central American region got independent after a long period of Spanish rule. If you are looking to dip your feet in some history, visit the country on Honduras Independence Day and you'll have the time of your lives. You'll witness some beautiful animals and very interesting sights. Can be ready to dance. Like several other nations, Honduras has a rich cultural history. There was a time when the land was home to Mesoamerican peoples, being home to an important UNESCO World Heritage Site known as Copan. It was an ancient city occupied by the Mayan civilization from 426 to 820 AD. The site, one of the jewels of Honduras, was discovered by Diego Garcia de Palacio in 1570. Apart from archaeological sites and beautiful scenery, there is more to tell about the history. This nation suffered at the hands of its occupiers and had to fight against freedom. Today is also commemorated as National Doodle Day. Drawing to make a difference is the key focus of National Doodles Day, an annual fundraising event in US that will be held on September 15th. On this day, selected famous people from the art, sports, and entertainment world are encouraged to pick up writing instruments and create doodles, which are then auctioned off to the highest bidders online. The proceeds go to support those affected by epilepsy and increase research in this area. The date used to fall on September 17th, but now changes every year. People have been using doodles to communicate for a very long time. The first evidence of this is found in prehistoric cave drawings. Those drawings and symbols, possibly made with sticks and stones, tell us stories of the people who came before. Early doodle drawings shifted to another medium, tablets. Scientists studying samples from ancient times, for example, from Mesopotamian societies found evidence of random images on the sides and edges of clay tablets. Some historians believe that doodling as an art form has always been around. However, the history of the word is quite different now. During the pre-Revolutionary War in America, a group of British military officers made up a song called Yankee Doodle, which they say sang to mock the disorganized American soldiers. At that time, the word doodle meant fool or simpleton. The Americans adopted this song as their own, altering it to mock their enemies during the war. Gradually, the word evolved to mean to do nothing. Then in 20th century, Mr. Deeds Goes to Town was released, and it used the word doodle to talk about absent-minded scribbling. And so doodles, as we know them, were born. At the same time, studies of the subconscious mind to interpret personality gained popularity, and so did the interest of doodling as a stress buster. So a doodle is a drawing made by someone whose mind is otherwise occupied at that time. Example includes drawing in the margins of school textbooks, meeting notes, etc. According to the research, doodles have long-term neurological and physical effects. It can calm us, help us process information faster, and help break a creative block. Sketch, draw, and scribble doodles for the people in your life who suffer from epilepsy. You can even participate in doodle events held around the day. The list of famous people doodling to support the cause is long and includes actors Stephen Coley, Michael Dougherty, fashion designer Christina Stambolian, authors Jess Alborough and Helen Craig, and many more. Doodles inadvertently reveal our innermost thoughts and show what our mind comes up with its most unguarded moments. When we feel pressure, doodling can help us elevate this in playful and creative way. Researchers believe in doodling can help brain remain focused by giving parts of the brain a break, allowing us to observe and retain more information overall. It has health benefits that it is thought to improve brain power. It's also fun that we can let our imaginations run wild. Epilepsy is on the list of most common neurological diseases and comes in fourth after migraine, strokes, and Alzheimer's. Our support can help raise awareness about the epilepsy and help people with illness live free of prejudice and stigma. Doodling barely takes any time to complete. It's an easy, simple, valuable way to show support. Today is also commemorated as National Double Cheeseburger Day in US. Full credit goes to the person who decided that double cheese is better than single cheese. In current times, having cheese in a hamburger seems so natural, but there was a time when that wasn't the case. A hamburger simply consisted of meat, bread, and some toppings. It was in 1926 when Lionel Stemberger created a cheeseburger in Pasadena, California. Of course, it is also considered one of the junk foods, so kindly be cautious in consuming them. Today is also commemorated as National Google.com Day in US. Google is a big part of our lives. Google started solely as a search engine, but now is a multinational technology company that offers many other services. The word Google has become a verb. It's pretty crazy to see how this search engine grew and now embedded in our lives. The history of Google began in January 1996. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, PhD students at Stanford University, started a research project to build a better search engine. They developed an algorithm called PageRank. When analyzed relationships between websites, it determined their relevance based on the number of links to other sites. When the search engine was first developed, one of its earliest names was Backrub. This name was changed to Google, a misspelling of the word goggle, which stands for the number 1 with 100 zeros after it. This was chosen because Google provided a lot of information and demonstrates that information on the internet is endless. On September 15, 1997, Page and Brin registered the domain google.com. In 1998, after raising money from investors, Page and Brin formally incorporated their business in a room attached to a friend's garage in Menlo Park, California. By December 1999, Google was in beta mode with about 10,000 search queries per day being answered. In 2003, Google moved its headquarters to what is now known as Googleplex. Originally, this was a 40-acre campus in Mountain View, California. Over time, they purchased several buildings on the site and gave them informal names. The campus had an open concept without cubicles, and balls were used as chairs. Merriam-Webster added the word Google to its collegiate dictionary in 2006, defining it as the use of Google search engine to obtain information on the internet. The company then started as a search engine, but now provides many other services. In 2015, the company restructured and became Alphabet Inc., and the Google became its largest subsidiary. Today is also commemorated as National Pomia Recognition Day. It is observed on the third Friday of September to recommit full accountability to the families of more than 80,000 veterans captured or still missing from wars that the United States has participated in. According to accounts, during the first ceremony of POW or MIA Day at National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., fighter airplanes from the military base in Virginia flew in the missing man information in their honor. This day was observed first in 1979 after Congress and the President passed a resolution to make it official following the demands of families of 2,500 Vietnam War POW MIS who asked for accountability in finding their loved ones. It is also mostly associated with service members who were prisoners of war during the Vietnam War. Today is also National Tackle Kids Cancer Day in US. It is observed on September 15th every year to draw attention to the crucial need for fundraising for pediatric cancer. Despite the cases of childhood cancer climbing up every year, only 4% of the federal spending is applied to pediatric cancer research. Under the leadership of Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation, Tackle Kids Cancer has raised $10 million from over 7,000 supporters. The raised funds are invested in innovative research and survivor rehabilitation programs by the Children's Cancer Institute. By observations today and raising awareness about the cause, good faith Samaritans get a chance to be part of over a dozen clinical trials and neuro-oncology programs to fight pediatric cancer. It is estimated that over 15,000 children are diagnosed with cancer each year. To put that figure into perspective, 1 in every 285 children in the US is diagnosed with cancer before they turn 20. Unfortunately, the scale of federal response towards finding a treatment has failed to meet the scale of the crisis. With the worsening numbers and no relief in sight, Hackensack Meridian Health established Tackle Kids Cancer in September 2015. Since then, it has raised funds to support cutting-edge initiatives in pediatric cancer research. Rating the success of the program, Hackensack University Medical Center Foundation established the National Tackle Kids Cancer Day in 2017 to further raise awareness about the lack of medical and financial infrastructure in pediatric cancer research. Kids who do survive cancer has a tough life ahead of them. This is why Tackle Kids Cancer also funds the Cure and Beyond program to help survivors rejoin society. Pediatric cancer research has progressed tremendously within the last decade. Over 70% of the cancer cases now can be cured through early intervention and medical therapy. Hold sessions and educate yourself and your loved ones about pediatric cancer on September 15. Stem cell therapy does not work against cancer. It helps you in reproducing healthy cells after radiation. Stem cell therapy is not recovery, not cure, is only recovery. The quicker cells multiply to rebuild damaged tissues, the faster a patient recovers. Healthy stem cells derived from a patient's body can be used for their healing. A person loses stem cells gradually, which slows down the speed of healing at an older age. There are virtually no side effects of stem cell therapy. Today is also commemorated as National Tradesman Day in US. It calls for the tradesmen in the country to be celebrated and honored for their essential services. A country could have all the sources, but if it wouldn't matter if people with the right skill set are not there to put sources to right use. Tradesmen, both men and women, are one such group of people who ensure that sources are used correctly for a nation to live in comfortable life. From plumbers, electricians to technicians and builders, these people maintain their respective industry services. This day is also a celebration of various trade jobs. Without them, no nation would be able to build itself. In fact, at any given time, there are 0.5 million, that is 500,000 jobs vacant in the market. The tradesman industry has always been one of the fastest growing markets throughout the years. Today is also commemorated as World Afro Day. World Afro Day is celebrated on September 15th every year, celebrates the natural kinky, coiled or curly hair people from black or mixed race ethnicities. World Afro Day was founded in an attempt to normalize afros and their natural texture and end discrimination towards people who wish to wear their hair in their natural afros. The day also attempts to instill a sense of pride in people about their hair and remove feelings of shame that might be associated with tightly coiled and kinky hair. When Africans were enslaved, they were forced to conform to the hairstyles and clothing of their enslavers. Their natural hair texture was seen as undesirable. So even after enslaved people were freed, societal pressures forced them to modify their natural hair. The process of changing naturally kinky and coiled hair into straight, smooth hair that was seen as desirable was not easy. Even today, the process of straightening and smoothing extremely coiled hair requires expensive substances that must be applied by professionals. These chemicals can cause burns, hair loss, and damage to hair over time. Apart from physical damage, people with naturally coiled hair have faced discrimination because their hair was unfairly seen as a messy or unkempt. This led people believe that their hair was not attractive and would also lead them to losing out on job opportunities. Employers would discriminate against them. With the advent of civil rights movement, more black people adopted the afro as a simple, easy to maintain hairstyle that did not require them to change the natural texture of the hair color. So World Afro Day celebrates the afro and all other hairstyles worn by black and mixed race people and all elements of afro hair culture and identity. It also educates people to understand more about afro hair and hairstyles. Today is also commemorated as World Engineers Day, serves to appreciate engineers and their contributions to society. Engineers are professionals who invent, design, and build complex systems and structures, materials in order to fulfill functional objectives and deliverables. Keep in mind factors such as practicality, regulation, safety, and cost. The word engineer is derived from the Latin words ingeniare, which means to create or generate, and ingenium, which means cleverness. An engineer typically would require foundational qualifications of a 4 years bachelor's degree in any of the several engineering disciplines or in peculiar jurisdictions. Master degree in an engineering discipline with an addition of 4 to 6 years of peer-reviewed professional practice, which would result them in a thesis, and then conclusively a passing of engineering board examinations. The inventions of Thomas Savery and James Watt in the West laid the foundation of the modern mechanical engineering in the West. The development of specialized machines as well as the maintenance of those tools during the Industrial Revolution gave rise to rapid expansion of the mechanical engineering, its first birthplace of Britain and beyond. The field of electrical engineering was marked and impacted by the experiments of Alessandro Volta in the 19th century. Other major contributions to the development of discipline were the experiments of Michael Faraday, George Oak, and others, as well as the groundbreaking invention of the electric motor in 1872. This field of engineering eventually became a profession late in the 19th century. Electrical engineers had built a global electric telegraph network, and the first electrical engineering institutions backing this discipline were established in the United States and the United Kingdom. While it is difficult to name the first electrical engineer with certainty, it is noteworthy that Francis Ronalds was a standout individual in the field, having created the first working electric telegraph system in 1816 and documented a personal vision of transformation of the world by electricity. The field of electronics was founded in the late 19th century through the work of James Maxwell and Heinrich Hertz. The eventual inventions of the vacuum tube and the transistor would further bolster the development of electronics to the extent of practitioners of electronics engineering currently outnumber any other engineering specialty. Chemical engineering also developed in 19th century during the Industrial Revolution, and with the increase in need, invariably demand for the large-scale chemical production came the creativity of an entirely new industry called chemical engineering. Today is also commemorated as Hispanic Heritage Month. Which began as a way to promote the history, culture, and contributions of Hispanic Americans, especially those whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, and Caribbean, and Central and South America. Communities marked achievements of Hispanic and Latino Americans with festivals and educational activities. Hispanic Heritage Month is observed annually from September 15 to October 15. And it's a time to appreciate and celebrate colorful cultures, rich histories, and diversities of American Latino community. So with this, we shall end the commemorations for the day. Thank you everyone for joining us. So we request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback form, which has been raised in the form of polls before leaving the platform. So we thank each and everyone for joining us for today's session. See you all tomorrow. Take care. Good night.